Keegan, I'm happy you're here.
Yeah.
Have I told you that today?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I
All right.
appreciate you having me on.
I love having you here because we're going to talk about the Patriots. And Logan and Dakota and I have talked about the Patriots, and none of us know what we're talking about in the universal terminology. But we've really run out of stuff to say about the Patriots. I don't know if you know, but they have not played a game in a couple months.
It's been a
Uh,
while, yeah.
Neither of any of these players. There haven't really been any. There was the combine and pro days, but um, nevertheless, a lot of the mocks and the prognostications, all this stuff are changing. I guess I'll just lay it. As a draft nerd yourself, what do you think about the Patriots draft outlook, specifically as it relates to like the first and maybe the second round? Let's just go like first day.
Yeah. I think they're in a good spot because they can do a ton of different things. I've given up on the Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter thing just off the cool factor, like how fun it would be to be able to watch good football players play for the Patriots because it's been a while. Um, but that was kind of where my mind was at originally. It was I made the argument that NFL teams are stupid and they reach on quarterbacks every single year. Why would this year be any different? But the closer we get, the more it looks like it's going to be Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, 1, 2, 3. So with the fourth pick, I think realistic outcomes, it's Will Campbell, Armand Membu, so whichever tackle they like the best, or it's a trade back. And there are two different ways they can go about it. You could trade back a few spots, take a tackle there. You feel more comfortable, you recoup some value in the second round, or you could trade back considerably and take a tackle, and then, or on the first one, you could jump back into the first round. So the way I've thought about it is trade back to 7 or 8, take one of the best players available, whether it's Tyler Warren or the Michigan defensive tackle or whoever you like there, trade back into the first round and take one of the tackles that'll be there, or you could trade back into the middle, take a tackle, and then you have a bunch of second round picks moving forward. So as a draft nerd, like you said, I enjoy the different outcomes that could come out of it because it gets the brain moving a little bit. I'm sure people are just like, just take Will Campbell and move on because who gives a shit? But that's the way my brain works.
I mentioned this last week. I'm sure you saw it, Keegan. Uh, who is who's coming up from 7 or 8?
So
Like, why? If this draft is what this draft is, and
remember the teams
teams
are
are willing to
stupid thing?
pass up on quarterbacks at 2 and 3, like,
Yeah.
why is somebody going to come up from 8 to 4?
The New York Jets are just historically
Yeah,
dumb. You know what I mean? And who knows? Maybe they won't. Maybe what we've heard most recently from the Jets is that they really like Ashton Genty and they want to move on for Brees Hall, which I think is like, okay, we have one good player at a position. Let's just
yeah.
yeah, let's just replace him. But that's them being stupid. I'm just expecting them to be dumb in a different way, I
I
guess.
guess the more I think about it, actually, like, if maybe a trade becomes more likely if the top 3 goes how you see it. You know what I mean? With where the quarterbacks don't go 1, 2, 3, or what, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if all of a sudden it looks like if somebody believes in Sanders and wants to get up and take him, maybe it makes sense. But yeah, that was one where it's like, I just don't know. I like the idea of moving way back, but like, that's
Yeah.
a tough sell. Like, that would take
I
some balls.
was I was just about to say it's the most Patriots thing, Patriots draft thing in general that the one year you want to pick
Yeah.
from 20 to 30, they don't have one because that's the spot where somebody's going to move in to draft Jackson Dart in that
Yeah, right.
range. And really if you have the 20th pick, and I don't know who has it, but you have Pittsburgh who could move up to take a quarterback. You have, some of the teams, maybe a Cleveland who took Travis Hunter first and wants to jump back into the first round to take a quarterback. They could do that. So it's a really tough year to have the fourth pick. I think it's the worst year possible, and it's great timing because they had the number one pick and they lost it because they beat a team who was actively trying to lose a game. So it's they're in not the greatest spot, but from a viewer standpoint, the amount of different directions they can go, I think is great because you're going to start to see in the days leading up to the draft the maneuvering that happens around them, and that's really going to kind of paint the picture of what they end up doing.
I guess I kind of share Mike's wariness though, because
Yeah.
I don't know that they have a lot of different ways that they can go. Because, like, to Mike's point, if you, like, let's say you really like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, and so like you're one, why would you not just make a deal with the Giants? You know
Right.
what I mean? Rather than wait and see how it shakes out and like, oh, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter is available to the Patriots. I better make a deal with the Patriots. Like, no, if you really like them, make a deal with one of those top 3 teams and not even leave it to that chance, because I don't know
Yeah,
that
who's
there's
moving up for Will
necessarily
Campbell? Or
what's that? Yeah, I
I
don't
think
know that there's
the
somebody that's
only
gonna be there at 4 that is all of a sudden gonna force somebody to move up,
the
because
only
like,
scenario
sorry,
I
go ahead.
actually see
Yeah.
it. No, I was just like it's Shadur Sanders. Does somebody fall in love with the number 2 quarterback at 4? And I think Hunter and Carter are clearly number 1 and 2 in terms of best player in the draft. I think Cam Ward is a worthy number 1 pick just because he plays the most valuable position. It's it's a team convincing themselves that this could be a long-term starter. If they see Geno Smith and Shadur Sanders, I'm sure a lot of teams would trade up for him. I don't know how many, and if they're in the range to actually move up with the Patriots. Though.
Right, but again, just looking at the draft order, right? Let's say that the New England is on the clock and Shadur Sanders is still on the board, and the Jets want
Yeah.
him. Jacksonville is not taking Shadur Sanders. So
Right.
if the Jets are worried about Las Vegas taking Sanders at 6, why don't the Jets just make a deal with Jacksonville? Because there's not they like there you don't need to worry. So that, like, that's kind of my thing is, it's
Right.
like, yeah, you could say, okay, well, the Jets would want to take the Patriots pick to leapfrog Vegas, but they could do the same thing with Jacksonville a pick later. And that, like, again, just taking a non-Patriot centric look at this, it's like, yeah, they could make deals there, but if you want to move up, the Giants are a better option than the Patriots. If you want to move into that mid tens range, the Jaguars are a better option than the Patriots. Like, there's so many other trade
Yeah.
partners that for me are better options than the Patriots. That's why I think
No.
at the end of the day, like I'm saying, I think they're just going to end up taking Will Campbell, or
Yeah.
they're just using the pick because they're not going to be able to find a trade partner, as ideal as it would be.
Betting wise, if we're throwing it back to an old show that some of us have been on, I think Will Campbell is at 4 to the Patriots is probably the easiest bet you could make, with all other than Cam Ward going 1. But I still think even if you take Will Campbell, the way they're set up moving forward, they've added depth at so many different positions that they can give up a future first or a future second to move back into the first round. And do you want to draft a receiver there? I don't know after the Diggs signing, but there are a lot of defensive, like really talented defensive players that are going to be sitting in that 25-32 range. I don't know if a team's going to be willing to trade back into the first round if it's the Patriots or not, but with the value that they have in future years and how little needs they currently have on the roster, I really only think it's left tackle, and you're looking at a team who could compete for a wild card spot. If they can address that early, you can still move into the first round and get a guy, a difference maker, I would say.
Who
should
would
trade up.
you like to see them take at 4 if as it goes Ward and then Hunter Carter as, or something in that range as it's expected?
Campbell. I think
Really?
we've
Campbell's who
yeah,
you like, yeah.
we talk a lot about like prospect fatigue. I think Will Campbell, other than Travis Hunter, is the biggest, you know, he's been hit by that more than anybody else just because we heard about the arm length issue. And the cutoff is 33 inches. If it's under 33 inches, there are like no NFL tackles who have been successful. He measured in at 33 exactly. So the box is checked. And other than that, I haven't heard a real knock against him other than little stuff like, he could add some weight on his lower head. It's the stupid draft stuff. You know what I mean? The stuff that if you have competent NFL coaches, which it remains to be seen if the Patriots have those, they can fix these small issues. Add a little bit of weight, get a little bit stronger, stuff like that. So I think he's the safest pick. And for me, if I'm a GM, I'm taking the safest pick at the only position that I really need to target at that spot. Armand Membu has never played left tackle in his life. Why am I going to take him with the 4th overall pick and expect that he can change from the right side to the left side?
The Vrabel kind of maybe tipped their hand too, or at least maybe it was coach speak. I don't know, but he didn't seem too concerned about like the stuff that you're talking about with Campbell. And I think
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy who would be unafraid of that and say, I trust our system, I trust our staff, I trust what we're building here. Let's just take a guy who we know is going to be good and we'll coach him up the best we can and we'll get around this one small thing when I can sit here and see hours of game film that says he can handle the position in the toughest conference in college football. Um, and we'll figure it out. Like they've got their coaching. Don't they have like 3 guys devoted to coaching offensive line or guys who have
Yeah.
offensive line coaching experience? So like that also might be a bit of a tell where it's like they're I mean it kind of has to be like their offensive line was that bad last year, but like yeah, I could see them being like almost defiant about it, where it's like, well, let's just take him, and people are gonna laugh at the fact that we took a guy who supposedly has short arms when he's, a 10-time Pro Bowl left tackle, and
Yeah.
maybe he's not Anthony Munoz, but it's gonna be better than what we've had in the last 10 years. You know what I mean?
He's the kind of player too where I believe this, and even if you don't care about my opinion, but like a Dane Brugler has said it, where okay, if he can't stick at left tackle, he's an all-pro left guard. Okay.
Yeah.
If you took an all-pro left guard at number 4 and that's the worst case scenario, I think you're living pretty good. You're not worried about that because having a good player next to one of these stopgap tackles, if it ends up being Vidarian Lowe again, having that instead of a rookie who's kind of still learning how to play the position in Layden Robinson, it's going to make him better because he's not going to have to worry about so many different variables on every snap. So I I don't think you can go wrong with Will Campbell, which is why I would make that pick.
This is like weirdly all Cole Strange's fault, where it's like they
It's all Bill
overreach.
Belichick's fault.
Oh yeah, well, I mean yeah, but like I think people probably look at him and be like, well, last time we overdrafted a guy who wasn't fully athletically available to play a position, he couldn't play center or guard. So, but I think that's a fair point though. Like if you, especially, and I think to tie in your 2 points, like them where they are in this development, like if it's a guy who just solidifies their offensive line, they're already moving forward. And I think that's
Right.
important.
Yeah, that's a important point. I think that like Keagan was noting, it's like at the very least, if Campbell can play somewhere, that's a problem. Is Strange couldn't play anywhere.
Yeah, right.
Couldn't stay on the field either.
Yeah, right.
Like
yeah. Well, and the
Will
other thing,
Campbell,
go ahead.
he's never missed a snap. It's been 3 straight years he started every game and he's never missed a snap, which is awesome. He's also, this is another nerd like college football thing, but having the little number 7 patch, they give that to their best playmaker from Louisiana. It's like a tradition at LSU. Calling your left tackle your best playmaker, I think that's the coolest thing in the world. Like I'll draft that guy. That guy's sick.
Doesn't say much about the rest of your offense.
Well, their offense sucked, so it was
Yeah,
like
that's my point. Yeah.
except for the quarterback who he went from being the backup to the Heisman Trophy winner to all of a sudden now he's the number 1 guy for next year, and Garrett Nussmeier, which we'll go down a rabbit hole in that
Oh
conversation.
yeah, let's just
Bad offense, really good player. I don't know. I think.
Yeah, I mean it's also okay to you have a top 3-4 pick back-to-back years. One year you hit on supposedly your franchise quarterback. The next year you hit on it's not necessarily a franchise altering talent, especially if there's not that franchise altering talent available to you in this draft. Because
Right.
that's the kind of thing that I constantly hear is people like, oh, you know, like you were saying, if you, it's unconventional to take a guard at 4, but we've all seen those drafts in the past where the draft ends up being such a dumpster fire that the best player to come out of it ends up being the guy who ended up being a 14-year starter at guard at number 18. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
if that's the guy you get in this draft, you can't get Travis Hunter. Might as well get someone that you can at least bank on for doing something, filling a role for you for the next however many years.
You could
Yeah,
also
it's-
argue like 38, 69, and 77 are like more important for them than 4.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would, and I didn't want to go too far into that, but if you fill the left tackle need, you can do whatever you want. And in this draft class where the strengths are tight end, running back, and defensive tackle, okay, those are your next 3 picks. Go grab a running back or go grab a tight end that can be your future because you've got 2 older guys at the position. Go grab some more defensive tackle depth that can play alongside the guy you just paid $20 million, or 2 guys you're paying $20 million a year. And then take a running back who can at the very least be your third down guy, which is something Mike Reese reported that they want to fill this offseason because it's a McDaniel staple, and maybe have some backup to the Ramondre Stevenson issue that kind of came about last year. I still think he's a good player, but if you're going to keep fumbling, you just can't be on the field. So it's like insurance for all three positions. And in the draft, in the middle rounds of the draft, that's exactly what you should be doing. It's insurance for positions you currently have that can eventually grow into starters or cornerstones on the roster.
The irony is like you can miss on first round picks. Like I, as long as your middle rounds are good. I root for a team that consistently whiffs on first round picks and is in the playoffs every year because they know how to draft on days 2 and 3. And you don't overspend or over allocate capital at positions that other teams go nuts for. I mean, I guess like you could say the Bills are kind of in a similar situation or have been, as long as you have a quarterback and as long as you're good in those middle rounds, you're probably going to be competitive. So they've got one of those things. They certainly have not had the other thing for the last 5 years.
The last Patriots dynasty was built on
Right.
second and third round picks. Like James White was a third round pick who didn't play at all his rookie year and should have been the Super Bowl MVP 2 years later. You're drafting and developing players. That's what you should be doing. You can't fix it all in 1 year, so don't even try. Draft guys who you think can eventually get to a point where they can help you out.
What are the Packers going to do in the draft, Mike?
I don't know.
Totally off topic.
They're
Take
actually
a
in a
defensive
weird
player
spot.
again.
They're in a really weird spot because like they probably should trade out of the first round if there's a deal available for them, but they're hosting the draft, so like it's kind of hard to trade out of the. You know what I mean? Like opening night, Thursday night, I think they pick it's like 23rd, I think it is, and it's like people are waiting around all night for the Packers pick, and they're like, actually, see you tomorrow night. We're trading back, so like I think that's the best play for them. I don't think they will. They've got same issues. It's the same thing every goddamn year. They need a receiver, they need offensive line depth, and they need a cornerback. So I don't know. Keegan would know better than I would at this point. So
Emeka Ibuka would be awesome with the Packers.
whoever
You'd
they
love
take will be hurt by week 6 anyway. So it's just, I mean, soft tissue injury of some sort. And
I made the argument like a couple weeks ago with Ibuka, but he's the all-time leading receiver at Ohio State. That end of discussion.
Yeah.
Think about the guys who have come through, and he stayed an extra year. He played all 4 years, but immediate contributor. He's like physically, he runs a 4.4 and he's 6'1", 210 pounds. He's like a behemoth at the position. And with the Packers, I know Jordan Love likes to go crazy style sometimes, but like just give him a security blanket. Give him a guy who on third downs you can throw him the ball. So
this guy's like second coming of Terry Glenn by the sounds of it.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the only Ohio State receiver I could think of off the top of my head. Former Packers great Terry Glenn did play for the Packers, so
couldn't be any more different if you wanted to compare wide receivers. But I honestly think like Jordy Nelson, just like stocky, throw him everywhere.
Hey, I'll take anything. Can you catch the ball? That's fine. Because I got that problem too. So probably take a running back or something. Whatever. Just in a good mood today.
Robo-umps. Lovely. Okay.